All right, why don't we get started? We'll go at 6:35 p.m. So why don't we start off with public inputs? Anybody for public input? Give me, I don't think we have anybody?
Nope.
Okay. All right, why don't we go now to student report? Ms. Palmer.
Hello.
Hello.
So for notable academic matters, we are almost halfway through quarter 2. For notable fine arts matters, the first show weekend for Water for Elephants just happened, and tickets are still on sale for the next weekend, 12/12 and 12/13, and the Performing Arts Winter Concert is going to be held on 12/18. For notable athletic matters, the winter sports have finally begun, and boys and girls basketball, boys and girls hockey, boys and girls indoor track, and wrestling. And we have the dance team, and it's called Dancing in December event, and that's going to be happening on 12/21. And then the juniors and seniors are invited to meet with college representatives. The mobile polar plunge signups are available, and the plunge is happening on December 19th, and the deadline to sign up is on Friday, 12/12. And over these past 2 days, we've had the DECA competition. So there's individual events happen today, and the team events will happen tomorrow. And our community service for juniors and seniors, it was due last week. And then for my student work report in anatomy, we had to write about like pretend backpacking trip through an Asian country. I chose the Philippines. And it's like incorporating exercises to build muscle and cultural foods to balance a healthy diet. I wasn't able to share it, but it's like a Canva with like pictures and all like the different exercises and like workout plans.
That's great.
Now, what would be special about a workout plan in the Philippines as opposed to other places?
We kind of wanted to incorporate hiking and as well like something like in the water, like aerobics while they were hiking.
Do they have anything at altitude? Like,
Um,
yeah, I'm totally quizzing you on this. But I don't know the I don't know the answer though. So you can say anything, I believe it.
like not really. Like, I guess like just like the hiking would
Yeah.
increase like your heart rate and stuff.
Yeah.
So now I have another question. You may not know the answer, but maybe someone will. Where is the polar plunge done?
In years past, it happens right down there by like the baseball field in that parking lot. Like a truck will pull up. I think this year it will be the same place.
We
But
have a plunge truck.
yes,
Special Olympics.
Yeah, we don't own it.
yes. This year the water should be cleaner than in years past. They've gotten it from the
Well,
Ipswich
that's
River.
concerning, but okay, that's good. Nice.
Who plunges? Is it a sports team? Is it teachers, administration? Is it anyone who wants to?
It's really anyone who wants to. I know volleyball, they sign up as a team,
Okay.
so they have to do it.
You just have to raise $25.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't do well
We
with
signed you
both.
up on the teachers,
I will give
administrators,
$25.
students. Well, we already signed you up last week.
Yeah.
I will be not able to do that this year.
Aw.
Cindy, you glazed right over the DECA. Did you?
Oh.
Like, you should make that a notable piece right there.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, today, me and my friend, we competed and we won. So now we're moving on to states.
Oh my gosh, that's exciting.
Yes. Thank you.
So you
Very
just said
elite.
we competed, not wanting to. Yeah,
Well-
exactly.
So you go to states next,
Mm-hmm.
and where is that? Is that in Boston or?
Yes. So we will stay over. It's either in the Seaport or like the Prudential, and we'll stay over for 2 nights and compete. So me and my friends, we decided to do this year like a planned project. So we planned it for like a few months. We had to do like a 20-page like written paper and then like a whole presentation like on a trifold.
You know you're gonna have to tell us what the project is, right?
Yes. So do you know like by Benevento's that big like long building?
Yes.
So, because there's nothing like going in there, and we don't really have like a sports facility like near us that is like can hold like turf fields, courts, like a hockey rink, because hockey players don't really have anywhere to go, and everyone's always like fighting for like field times and everything. So we wanted to turn that into like a whole like sports facility. And because it's already built, like it wouldn't cost as much to like actually do like all the renovations and stuff. So we kind of turned that into like, it's called like Sunrise Sports Complex. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
I love it. Should bring it to the select board.
yeah.
Excellent. Any questions?
No, that's
No,
great.
it's great.
So before you go, who here has seen the show?
I'm going on Friday.
Friday?
I can't wait.
It was awesome. Wonderful experience. Highly recommend it for anybody who's watching. Not that I think anybody is, but still.
We have a huge at-home audience.
Yeah, exactly. They'll watch it later. Outstanding. Well, thank you for coming, and you're
having me.
more than welcome to stay. We're gonna start giving out prizes for people who stay. But
Well,
all right, you can go.
He's not.
thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Bundle up.
Thank you.
Out there.
I know.
Jeff, the middle school one, there's nobody for that? No student for that?
There's not.
No.
Just want to make sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so continued business. I don't believe we have any. For new business, why don't we do the student services presentation, Ms. Conan?
One thing here to switch. Let's get on that. Oh, no, it's this one. Just remember which one makes it this one. Yeah, you're good. It's pretty good.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good evening, members of the school committee. Thank you for having me here tonight. I was looking back at my presentation from last year, and last year we were talking about special education and out-of-district placements. This year we're gonna change gears altogether. It's helpful sometimes just to talk about the scope of the Office of Student Services. So in some districts, student services focuses only on special education. Here in North Reading, we have special education, 504 accommodation plans, related services, nursing and health services, school counselors, K-12, and we are responsible for the provision of educational services for any homeless students. So when we think about student services here in North Reading, we're talking about all of those support services that we have in place to support our students. And tonight, I really want to take some time to talk with you and focus on our nursing and school counselor teams. So I'm really hoping to share with you some of the emerging trends that we're seeing with students, talk about some of the emerging guidance that is sort of out there coming out with respect to nursing in schools, and kind of talk about the integrated approach that we're starting to take as we support overall student wellness, just given some of the trends that we'll talk about. I'm also excited to share some highlights with you that are happening across the district, specifically with nurses and school counselors working together towards student wellness. And then just take a little look ahead about an event where we're going to do some more partnering with families. I always think it's helpful just to start with talking about what we have here. Who is our team in nursing? So across the district, we have 5 full-time nurses, so that's 1 per building. And then we have our .5 float nurse. You might recall previously that position was a 1.0. That was a full-time position and was reduced as part of the budget process. So when it comes to nursing, like nurse to student ratios, the Department of Public Health has what they call recommended compliance ratios. little different from special education where some things are required. This is what they call recommended. So we always are trying to use this as a guide when we're looking at, do we have enough nursing coverage? Are we doing okay? Are we supporting our students to the best that we can? So the recommendation, as they have it laid out, they look at it by building, so number of students in a building. So for buildings with 250 to 500 students, the recommendation is a full-time nurse. And for buildings with more than 500 students, the recommendation is an additional 0.1 FTE for every 50 students. So that's a little math for people at the table who like numbers. So on this next slide, I just like to lay this out as a quick visual. So at the top, again, is the recommended compliance. 250 to 500 is one full-time nurse. Over 500, then that's where we're talking about the additional 0.1 FTE. So if we look at it by building, all of our elementary schools fall within that 250 to 500, and then all have a full-time nurse, which is great. Then we go to our middle and high school. The middle school, we're right around 527, so we would be thinking about 1.0 plus 0.05, half of the 0.1, again, for our numbers people. At the high school, we're looking at right around 640 students, so we would be talking about 1.3. So in total, when we think about having 5.5 FTE with all of our nurses, when everybody's here and present, we are meeting the recommended compliance. However, I would say we need to be thinking about things that take a nurse away from the building. Not only, you know, if there's an illness or something like that, but a field trip might necessitate, a nurse might need to accompany a student on a field trip, which then leaves the building down. Professional development opportunities. These are times when the nurse is required to be out of the building, and those are the times where, when we think about this recommended compliance, that it's vulnerable in that regard, because then not having the nurse there in the building to support some of our diabetic students, or if we're struggling to find coverage, that's when it becomes more concerning. And I think about this as we are thinking about budget and positions in that float nurse position. Some of the emerging trends that we're seeing in terms of profiles, again, for me, this speaks to how important it is to have a nurse in the building, especially as we're seeing an uptick in some of these profiles. We're seeing an increased prevalence of diabetes, seizure disorders, students requiring emergency medication, as well as complex medical conditions that have both physical and emotional wellness implications. So if we think about a student with diabetes or students with seizures, and then we imagine the nurse going on the field trip or a nurse going for professional development, and some of those can be planned for if we know enough in advance and we can secure coverage. But people get sick, we're all human, that happens. And in those times, it becomes concerning when we just think about those recommended ratios. So in light of those trends, you know, that's where we want to be thinking about if these are our students that we're supporting and we're looking at these ratios, there's some vulnerability there, having that reduction. There's also been some developing guidance, and I'll say emerging guidance. Nothing has been formalized or finalized, but some of what we're hearing as it's emerging is speaking to a district's responsibility for when it needs to be providing nursing coverage, and early emerging guidance, which again has not been finalized, but it's really talking about a far more comprehensive scope and picture of what we're required to do. So these are things that we just want to be thinking about as we're planning for our students and thinking about next year and making decisions around budgets. So the implication, as we think about the trends with students and some of these updates, the need to have a nurse in the building is critical. We've always faced a challenge as it pertains to securing nurse substitute coverage. It's just a very difficult position to fill. I think in North Reading, our nurse leader has done a really wonderful job at it. You know, we do have a handful of substitutes that we can call on that, will, help us pretty consistently. But there are times that we come up short and we don't have anyone. And sometimes, we might come in and somebody's out and there's no advance warning. And I just really want to say, our nursing team goes above and beyond when that happens, and they do whatever needs to happen to make sure our students are safe and cared for. When we do that, it's wonderful collaboration, it's wonderful teamwork, but from a recommended compliance point of view, it's concerning to me, and I think it puts us in a vulnerable position. So again, I bring this up just to speak to as we think about positions such as the float nurse that was previously a 1.0, and just how, what we're seeing now, the implications for some of those reductions. Switching gears a little bit and talking about our North Reading counselors. So we have different types of counselors in the district. We have school psychologists. We have what was formerly known as guidance counselors. Now we call them school counselors. And we have our school adjustment counselors. So each of those roles function a little bit differently in terms of what their essential functions are. So for purposes of tonight's presentation, I want to talk about our school adjustment counselors. And again, just kind of grounding us in who do we have on our team for school adjustment counselors. So at the high school, we have 2 full-time adjustment counselors. The middle school, we have 1 full-time. The Batchelder School, we have a full-time adjustment counselor. The Hood School, we have a 0.8, and the Little School, we have a 0.6. And some of the trends that we're seeing in terms of social emotional, just similarly as we spoke about the medical side of things, we are definitely seeing higher prevalence of anxiety across grade levels. There's an increased need for Tier 1 self-regulation support at the elementary levels. And I would say across the district, we are definitely seeing challenges as it relates to school avoidance. And that is due to a combination of anxiety as well as some complex medical profiles that have both physical and emotional implications. So when we think about these trends and what it means for the work that we do, and as we're planning for the upcoming school year, that Tier 1 work of our school adjustment counselors, where they're going into classrooms at the elementary level and they're doing lessons for all students, that is critical. That is critical work that they're doing. It's highly impactful. That is really getting at the development of those skills. And it doesn't require students to have a qualifying disability or qualifying anything for them to receive that instruction. So that's really critical as we think about how we help our students to build those regulation skills and those coping skills. A program that we have that I don't think we talk about enough and is a great resource is our Bridge program, which we have a Bridge program at the middle school and at the high school. So the Bridge program offers an option for students who may have been out of school. It could be for a concussion or a sports injury or a mental health episode, anything where they may have been out for a couple of weeks, a few weeks, let's say. This offers students support where they're able to come back into the Bridge program and they do a gradual, slow transition back into their classes where they're not overwhelmed by all the work all at once. They can, complete their assignments. They get social emotional support through an adjustment counselor. there's a teacher in the Bridge program. And if you imagine, if we took this option away and a student came back following 3-4 weeks out of school, and we send them back into class with just the expectation to catch up, that's a lot. That's very overwhelming, and likely without an option at the tier 1, meaning for all students, we fall into that same cycle of, well, we have to put them into referral, and we have to qualify them for special education so that we can connect them to services. So I don't think that the Bridge program gets spoken about enough, so I wanted to make sure to highlight it tonight. As it is, it's a really impactful program that's available for all students. Again, we're not talking about a qualifying disability or anything like that. The other really important piece here with these trends that we're seeing is forming partnerships with families. I think especially when we're talking about school avoidance, it's really a partnership between families, nurses, counselors, sometimes a child's primary care physician, sometimes an outside therapist. But that is a challenge that can really get away from us quickly and requires intensive intervention early on to avoid a student getting, to 1 week, 2 week, and then that anxiety just builds and builds, and it just becomes more and more difficult to get the student back. So really forming those partnerships is critical to do that work. So thinking about these trends, both the medical and the social emotional side, and thinking about how we're responding, I am excited just to be able to share with you just, the manner in which we're taking an integrated approach with some of these complex profiles. And we have our school counselors and nurses really partnering together to provide that integrated approach to student wellness. So a couple of highlights for you, just to give you some examples. So at the high school, the school nurse and the adjustment counselor have partnered together to find ways and opportunities for students to have time in the classroom to regulate. So they're working with classroom teachers to sort of dedicate a section of the classroom for the purpose of, if you need to take a break, you can come over here. And they can sit for a minute. They might have access to headphones if they want to. They might be able to journal for a few minutes. So this type of approach really allows for the student to remain in the class. They're not leaving. They're not missing instruction. This was a really nice partnership that came about through an educator evaluation goal. And we tend to see that a lot in terms of our educator evaluation goals, where different departments will partner up and come up with these really creative ways to support our students. And this one was a great one that jumped out at me. Also, at one of our elementary schools, we have a small group that's being facilitated by the nurse and the adjustment counselor, where they're working with a small group of students, and the group is focused on self-care. They are helping students to make the connection between how they're feeling physically and how that impacts their emotions, which then impacts their learning. So that I had an opportunity to see firsthand, and it was very impactful. Students were very engaged, and to see how beautifully the nurse and the adjustment counselor were able to integrate those two together was just a really nice example of collaboration and how we're really taking this integrated approach with our students. And then I need to give a very big thank you to our Special Education Parent Advisory Council. They came forward with an idea to have a Q&A panel with our school counselors. They brought this idea forward. They had it all planned out and mapped out. We worked together and were able to come up in November, and we had what was called Championing Student Wellness, a Q&A with school counselors. So this was an opportunity for families to ask questions of our counselors, and it was very impactful because it was one of the first times that I have seen our school counselors across grade levels. So to hear what's happening at elementary all the way up to high school, you really got a sense of the impact of all the work that's happening. And then when you put all that together, how incredibly impactful that work is for our students. And it was a good way for us to partner with families and help sort of give them a picture of these are services that are available to all of our students when we're talking about our adjustment counselors. They're for general education, they're for tier 1. So it was a wonderful night, and as a result of that, sort of reflecting on that and having some follow-up conversations with CPAC and with the counselors involved, and in partnership with Mr. Colleen, we are going to have a family university event where one of our school counselors is going to lead that event, and it's going to be focused on anxiety, how to support your child with anxiety, really tips, strategies, and just partnering together. We saw a lot of that night when we had that event. Parents asking questions, and just the dialogue that we were able to have was just incredible. And you know, we've had some talk, do we make this an annual event that we do every year? How can we continue to build on this? And I think this is really critical, again, going back to the trends, both medical and social emotional. Family partnerships are hugely impactful when we're trying to support our students. So we're excited about that, and again, just a big thank you to our CPAC for brainstorming on that. Moving into numbers and budgets and some things to think about as we're thinking about planning for next year. And just keeping in mind some of the information that I just shared with you as we're thinking about recommended ratios with nursing, the medical profiles of the students that we're seeing, some of the social emotional trends that we're seeing. Restoring the float nurse to a 1.0 is really a way to ensure safety of our students in alignment with the recommended ratios. You know, we think about our students who are managing chronic illnesses, or who have seizures, or who have emergency medications. This is just a really, really important team in the district. All of everybody in the district is important, and I think our nurses have an expertise that nobody else has. You know, they bring that medical lens, and for a student with diabetes, they might rely on that nurse to know, oh, she knows that, you know, if I'm running a little bit low, my coloring might be a little off, or that becomes really important for students to feel safe in their school. I also think about our academic interventionists. These positions in particular that were at the elementary level provided a tier 1 option for struggling students. And without that position, it really puts people in a position of, again, how are we going to support the student? Well, we'll put them in a referral for special education. So we don't want to be creating an environment where the only avenue for students to access support is by qualifying for special education or putting them on a 504 accommodation plan, which are fine, and they have, you know, they're intended for certain populations, but it shouldn't be the go-to and the only answer that we have. And the interventionist position is a really critical one, and I've spoken with the principals, the elementary principals around this position, and I've heard the sentiment of sort of feeling as though without it, we don't have an avenue, we don't have a path to getting the student support other than going down the referral route. Special education. So when we think about the special education teacher positions at the middle school and some of those reductions that were made, when we're talking about special education and we're reducing teachers, essentially what we're doing is taking away our ability to create new programs, develop more creative programs, keep students in the district who, if the vision is for them to remain in the district, keep them in the district. having those positions allows us to do that. Without those positions, we are limited to essentially just whatever is written on the plan, what we can do. So then if we have a student move in with something a little bit different, we really don't have any flexibility because we don't have the ability to do something a little bit differently, or maybe tweak something that we're doing, or be a little bit more creative. You know, there was a situation at the middle school where I was able to work with 2 families and create a program that allowed a student to remain in district, and that happened through a family partnership, collaboration with the building principal, and looking at our resources and rearranging them a bit. When we start cutting to that degree and we tie our hands, you know, it's just very limiting in that regard, and we end up sometimes having to, you know, rely on an out-of-district placement where we otherwise maybe would not have had to do that. Out-of-district tuitions, I think I always just, it's important for me to say, you know, there are times with out-of-district tuitions that we can be pretty confident in predictions that we're making, and, you know, we think, you know, certain things are on track, and that can all change overnight. We can have students move into the district. We can have a student suddenly require a change in placement. Things like this can happen with very little warning and not an ability to be planful around it. It is an unpredictable budget line, and I always say, you know, in my meetings with Mr. Connolly or with Dr. Daly, you know, just remember, like, this can be very unpredictable, so this is what we think, this is what we're planning, but let's just be mindful that there could be a change. We don't know with that line item. And I would also just like to put out there again, as we spoke about trends for students, for each elementary school to have their own full-time adjustment counselor, I think that would be incredibly impactful, again, as we think about how we are responding to trends with anxiety, school avoidance. These are the positions where all students have access to that instruction, where they're learning how to regulate, where they're learning how to cope with feelings of anxiety, recognize anxiety, and again, not dependent upon a qualifying disability. Always having that overarching goal of wanting our Tier 1 learning environment to be rich with interventions that are not contingent upon that. So we have tutoring available through academic interventionists, or we have our classroom-wide SEL lessons through our adjustment counselors. These are the pieces that really create a very rich and impactful Tier 1 learning environment for our students, so that we're not just relying on special education to connect students to support. Questions? Any questions that anybody might have?
I have a bunch. So
Yeah,
if
no,
anyone
I think we all do.
I'll go first. Just simple question, just again, for all the masses listening. How does a floater work? So we have a floater right now that's not even full-time. Does that person, where do they float? Is it just if there's, so it's not a substitute nurse, but a floater can sort of work as a substitute nurse. But is it like a floater, if say there's a field day, the floater's going over there because there are kids out of the building or things like that? Am I right, that's how a floater works, or?
Thank you. It's a great question that I think probably a lot of people are wondering about. So our float nurse works closely with our nursing team, and so they help when coverage is needed. They also help when we're doing mandatory screenings. So when a nurse has to screen a building, we might use our float nurse to cover the office, so the building nurse can go and do the screenings. She might go on a field trip if needed, or it might be a day where we come in and somebody's unexpectedly out and we all have to pivot, and she's helping with coverage. She works across the district, across all schools, with all nurses. She helps with everything from daily coverage to screenings, office coverage, working with, the building principal if there's a medical issue that needs any advice or guidance, anything like that. So she jumps in and is a critical member of the team and is able to help in all of those aspects of school nursing.
Okay. So one full-time's ideal, but probably even more would be even more ideal.
Yes, absolutely,
Right.
absolutely. Yeah, Dr. Daly and I
because there
had
are-
that same discussion.
I would assume there are times where there's a school without coverage.
So, yes. So when that happens, as I kind of spoke to this earlier, that we have an incredible nursing team here in the district, and they go out of their way to problem solve in the moment. So let's say, hypothetically speaking, today we came to work and one of our elementary nurses was out. Our lead nurse would go down and cover the elementary school, and then where our middle and high school offices are adjoined, our middle school nurse might cover both offices, but it really gets pared down to on an emergent basis. We have to rely, if it's an emergency, we have to call 911. If it's a child who we believe is sick, we have to call the parents. But that's the way that we work to try and cover our students, and it's not ideal, but it's the reality of what happens from time to time when people get sick and we don't have a lot of notice.
Okay. Another thing you mentioned that that you were doing some sort of like group work where you're in the classroom, the Tier 1 emotional learning, and you said that that's or I guess that's classroom learning, right? So that's being done by the adjustment counselors in the classroom, and you use the word highly impactful. Is that something that's measured, or is that just observed? How do you describe highly impactful?
So when I think of highly impactful, I think anything that we're doing proactively without being contingent upon a qualifying disability, where we're providing students with information on a proactive basis, that is impactful, incredibly impactful, because that student might face a situation where anxiety pops up, and without that instruction, they may not recognize it as anxiety.
Okay.
We also, moving up through closer to middle and high school, we start talking about universal screeners. And that's a great way to measure. So our students who are coming from elementary up to the middle school, we can do universal screeners. At the middle school, they tend to screen for development of skill. So there are some screeners that are looking for symptoms of depression or symptoms of anxiety. There are other screeners that look at the development of skill. At the middle school, they tend to utilize screeners that look at skill development. So that is really a way that we can take a look at how that classroom-wide instruction can be impactful.
Okay. Sorry, I have a few more. Well, I'll be quick.
Make her define highly impactful.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't mean
Crowd tonight.
I'm sorry.
hope
But
I
I'm
answered your
curious. I'm
question.
really just very, I think it's important. The integrated sessions between the school nurse and the adjustment counselor, have you gotten any student feedback on that?
Well, I had an opportunity to observe this group, and just what I can tell you is that the students were and every single student was engaged. They were so excited, and it was a hand washing lesson, and we in the district have a tool where they can put their hands under, it's like a blue light, and it will show you the germs, and then you wash your hands and you learn proper hand washing, and then you can see, oh, we don't see as many germs under the light. They loved that. There's movement. They get up, they sit down, they're washing their hands. They can actually see and connect to the content and the instruction. And then that is followed up with, okay, so let's think about, germs sometimes can make us sick. How do we feel when we're sick? Tired, and if we feel tired, how does that affect our mood? And just that through line that they were able to establish, around that physical to emotional health and well-being, it was just wonderful to see. And the student engagement, in my opinion, spoke for itself. To see every student engaged, participating, nobody was off track. They were so excited to jump up and get in line and put their hands under the blue light. I, not so much. I did not want to see germs on my hands, but that was a really wonderful group to observe. And, you know, that partnership happened through the collaboration of the professionals. That didn't come down as this is a directive that you have to do, that you must do. And it really speaks to the hardworking educators, teachers, and nurses that we have in the district.
Okay, great. And then my last comment, and then I'll pass the torch, was the inclusion of the academic interventionist
Yeah.
in the discussion of, you know, social, emotional wellness. Now, interventionists are strictly academic, is that correct?
Yes.
But I think that's like such an important thing to emphasize, and I'm just happy that, because I think that's like, they're so connected.
Absolutely.
Again, I'm always thinking of narrative examples to share when we're talking about budget, and like connecting like these dots together. So, you know, I think that's an important element to include in the discussion.
Absolutely, it's very connected. You know, if a student is in class and maybe they're a little confused and maybe they're a little shy or anxious to raise their hand and ask a question or get some clarification, to have the ability, you know, for a teacher maybe to pick up on that cue, either through, you know, their observation or something else, and to be able to have an option to, you know, an interventionist to get a little bit of extra support, maybe in a little bit of a smaller setting. It's just so important.
I think it's like, you said, like, maybe if they're shy, or I think that's like basically all kids at some point in
Yeah.
their school career. Whether
Absolutely.
they're shy or not, or whatever. Having, like, feeling like you're, like, academically left behind,
Yes.
because that's when you lose them.
Probably all of us in the room can think of a time that we had in our, you know, educational
Yeah.
experience where you have that feeling. And, yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, sure. So I think you covered a lot of it. Those were great questions. But just to go on more about the interventionist, can you just refresh my memory and anyone else who is listening? So I'm assuming a lot of the same students might be needing the interventionist and the adjustment counselor. And how many positions do we need to restore from a budgetary perspective?
Yeah, so I believe we cut all 3 of our interventionists. So those positions are all gone.
For the elementary schools?
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
So are there any interventionists at the middle or high school, or do they not have those?
No, that position is not at the middle and high school.
Sorry, I'm just noticing
Yep.
Dr. Daly.
So we had 3 15-hour-a-week positions that were eliminated. Our goal was to have 3 full-time teachers. So the gap between the vision and where we are, we took a step back even from the interventions. So we're still hoping to have 3 full-time, 1 of each elementary and also 1 at the middle school. So that's our goal.
3 full-time interventionists.
Right, so but just to restore what we had, just keep in mind that
15
what we
hours,
had
right.
was just a piecemeal until we got to the vision. Right?
So we don't want to restore, we want to go further than what okay.
We really want to have 1
Yep.
at each school. And figuring out high school, but that's been the vision for several years, Mr. Correct?
Correct.
Is to have one full-time educator, 40 hours, you know,
Yep.
as opposed to, but even the 15 hours, we got really great bang for the buck, we'll
Yes.
say. They were excellent educators, we got a lot out of them, and so we're seeing that, certainly, we're hearing it from teachers, from everyone, special education is, you know, sensing, what's hard is these are the things that you don't immediately see,
Yeah,
but they'll play out down the road, so that's why we're highlighting a little bit.
okay.
And that was also mentioned in the high school and middle school presentations. I think they each mentioned that as a high on their wish list.
Of what they would, yeah.
Yeah.
And same question for the adjustment counselor.
So the adjustment counselor was not a reduction. It was an ask that we had to increase what we had so that each of the elementary schools had their own full-time adjustment counselor. So right now, the Batchelder has a full-time
Mhm.
adjustment counselor. The Hood School has 0.8 and the Little School has 0.6. And that 0.6 is executed by 2 people, a 0.4 and a 0.2, if if that makes sense, for numbers people. I think you probably understand what I'm saying here, okay?
And what about at the middle and high school?
So the middle school has a full-time adjustment counselor, the high school has 2.
Okay.
If you go back a few years, we had some others, we had to reduce those, going back 3-4 years. Again, our goal was to have one full-time at every school, and the high school would have 2. We had like a shared position, and then we had to move away from some of those in the past as well. So our goal again is to get to one at every building. Right now, the sharing is, it's not really working out. There are days when there is, a building doesn't have anybody, right? Because they're not necessarily going between 2 different buildings in one day. And so there's, I think it's Thursdays, I've heard about. And just, it's different. When the kid needs that person,
Yeah.
they're not there at all. It's problematic. So having a full-time person, as you can imagine, is a kind of position where you really need someone associated with that building.
Yeah.
So that's
Yep.
really why it's a vision. People in the roles are doing the best they can, they're doing a great job, but that's really what we need to do.
Okay. And then just, because I'm just trying to capture all the kids that maybe, you know, to keep them off the plans, but there is a school psychologist also.
Correct. So the school psychologists typically service our students on IEPs.
Okay.
So those are our students who are eligible students receiving that support through an individual education plan. So they're doing the counseling and the testing that goes along with all of that.
Okay.
You know, I think of the example that always comes to my mind when I think of an adjustment counselor. I think of, you know, let's just say, for example, an elementary student who maybe they lost their pet over the weekend,
Mhm.
and they're very upset coming to school, and they might need just like a few days over the course of that week of somebody to
Yep.
to talk to about it, because they're upset, and just to like get them over that hump and get into class. And without that, without having that, you know, that without that student having that support, that could easily turn into, I don't want to go to school, my stomach hurts,
Yeah.
I'm staying home. You know, those are the types of examples that come to my mind that when we think of very impactful, like
Yeah.
that is very impactful.
Yep. And sorry, just my last question. The small group sessions that you were talking about with the terms and things like that, what elementary school is that at? And did the district pick, or did the principal pick, or like?
That was
how
at
did
the
this-
Batch, that was at
Okay.
the Batch Elder School. It was a collaboration between the professionals in the building, and they worked together and came up with a plan to do this. They focused in on very specific areas of skills that they wanted to target and develop, and how they were gonna create that through line between the medical side and the emotional side, and then the impact to learning. And, you know, I think it was one of the first times that I have seen that collaboration, but it's definitely one that I would say we could easily replicate. And I think it was, they wanted to, you know, let's see how this goes. I think it's been very successful, and it's very easy to replicate. You know, we could do that in other
That's-
buildings.
Yeah, I love the germs and the
Yeah,
emotions.
yeah.
So was it just one class, or different students were chosen, or?
So they were students from a particular class, yeah.
Okay.
A small group from a particular class.
Okay. Great. No, these sound amazing, and always great to remind us for
Yeah.
budgetary issues. Thank you.
Sure, of course.
Thank you, Ms. Conan, for the presentation, always fun. 2 quick questions. One, a couple of years ago, I think it was, you talked about, when we were talking about the floater nurse,
Yeah.
about compliance. And I remember, because I think Noelle and I were not in
Yes.
compliance, because we needed something.
I remember,
And I remember that, like, it was parents had to get something done.
yes.
And I know you had said that this position allows us to do that. It was tracking down parents to make sure they got all the forms that they needed. Are we falling more out of compliance? Are we seeing that with the reduction now? Are we seeing that drop a little bit, or not?
That's definitely connected to the reduction, because we're not able to get to those kind of tasks because we're in constant in the acute of day-to-day, you know,
Right.
support of the students that we have. So the compliance piece that you're talking about is around having students' physicals on file.
Right.
And calling parents and reaching out to say, can you send in your child's physical, because we're required to have that on file. So that's the compliance piece versus the recommended ratios piece around, just to make that distinction.
Okay, and then the bridge program, I know a few people have talked about it before, which I think
Yeah.
it's a great program. I know when we talk about the collaboratives, I've seen in some of the collaborative reports like SEAM or whatever, that like, sometimes they have similar sorts of programs, don't they? And like, I'm gonna guess from a financial perspective, it's a lot less expensive to be able to do it with our own counselors as opposed
Yes.
to SEAM. I mean, do you know how much, if we had to do a program like that outside, do you have any idea of the cost differentials or not?
So outside,
Like if somebody went for 3 weeks to SEAM for,
Okay.
you know, like instead of going to
Okay.
a bridge program, I'm just curious.
Oh, sure,
Like how
yeah.
much that costs.
yeah, so a good way to think about this would be an extended evaluation, which is a 40-day evaluation. That cost runs us anywhere between $15,000 and $17,000 for the student.
Right.
That's just the tuition alone. That doesn't include transportation, which is a lot more.
Yeah.
So Bridge has been very effective. One case in particular comes to mind where the student needed Bridge, and at the same time they were assessing for special education, and they got to the end and realized the student didn't need special education after having the intervention of Bridge. The student went on, reintegrated into class. Very impactful.
And again, I imagine there's also advantages of doing it at your home school district too,
Absolutely,
as opposed to going to another place to reintegrate into a different building.
absolutely.
You have a second one?
Yeah, exactly. All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I promise not to keep you there too long. Couple questions and a comment. At least not for this presentation right now, it would be great as we get into board budgets to know some of the numbers about the trends for the nursing, like how many people are being seen over time, because that gives us it sort of graphically puts into place, oh, this is how many people are getting seen by a single nurse at a single school
Sure.
and/or not being seen. I mean, that's what we actually see, that's not what we can't see. And the same thing with adjustment counselors. What is their caseload like?
Yep.
Again, I'll bring up my family who does the same role. I can tell you it's a lot. And it's, everybody gets seen and everybody is within compliance, but it is still not much left over for walk-ins, as it
Right.
were.
Right, so here in North Reading, with our adjustment counselors, we have that position structured so that it's all gen ed. So
Right.
the caseload, if you will, is by grade. It's every classroom getting that social emotional learning lesson. And then what's left over is our ability to do some tier 2 intervention, those small groups. Again, not dependent on a qualifying disability. But then, with all the students and all of that, then beyond that is, if we have to go beyond that, we're probably moving into referral and
Right.
moving more into the role of a psychologist or providing that service through an IEP. But you're absolutely right about caseloads and what's left over, and absolutely.
And you mentioned IEP, so I'll just do a little public service announcement. This is the 50th anniversary of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And so, just so people understand, the concept of an IEP has not always existed.
Right.
That is something that came about. And we talk about outplacements, and we talk about making sure all the needs are met, but also talk about budgets. Budgets don't matter in terms of, budgets matter, but budgets don't matter when it comes to outplacements. If a child needs to be outplaced, if a child needs services, they get the services they need. It's the right thing to do, and it's also the law.
Right. Right.
So, for those that are listening thinking, wow, that's something that gets cut, no, we just have to deal with it. We have to deal with it holistically, from a budget perspective, but the child's gonna get what they need. And that's not a question. Thank you so much for everything you do and all that you present to us and to the town. It's, in case people don't know, like who haven't seen past years, this is always one where we show a lot of interest. It's not just interesting, it's vital, and we appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I really
Yeah.
appreciate that. I appreciate all the questions. I really do. I always feel like you understand what I'm sharing with you, so thank you.
Understand and appreciate. Dr. Taylor?
I just wanted to share my thoughts, and I appreciate that your presentation covered the many aspects of your job. Beyond special education, you did a nice job of doing that, but then also tying back in all the pieces that fall under you as we look for the budget piece. And I just want to thank you for presentations like this, but also just to make sure the committee and everyone knows that, Cynthia's done a lot of things for us as well, leading our principal search for the high school last year, all aspects of that, all the way through, and doing so much work within the community and working with families as well. So thank you for all that.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
So much. It's a pleasure. It's a wonderful community.
Mr. Freeman, may I suggest we do 3 and 4, and then we can spend a little more time on 2? Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So the middle school origami club.
I honestly don't have a lot to present. This was something that was student-driven. Student approached the teacher about wanting to form a club. They have the requisite number of students interested. I think everyone knows origami, paper folding, and they're just looking forward to that activity. It sounds like a great idea for a pilot, and we'll see what the interest holds.
For a second there, I thought you had like a little unit
know.
in your hand or
I
something.
thought I was gonna.
What is it gonna be?
Pull it
Like a
out.
crane
No,
or a
that would have
frog.
been cool. That would've been great, yeah.
Yeah, so I think we need a motion for that.
Move to approve the middle school origami club as a pilot.
Second.
Is it this year or next year?
It would be for this year. Yeah, it was the principal's
2025, 2026.
driving it for this year.
Second?
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion?
I think it's great for middle schoolers to have more. Like, I
Oh,
think there's
yeah.
a lot of club at the high school. I think some of these things have been, like Dungeons and Dragons. I'm like, oh, we approved Dungeons and Dragons. It became like the most popular
Yeah.
program at the
It's
middle school.
unbelievable.
It's
Yeah.
like, you don't know, it's just a way for people to connect. So I think it's great for middle schoolers to have some more clubs, so.
I'm sure, hey, look, I'm sure that there'll be a little stand outside at some point with like little figurines or whatever, so I think it's great. So we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved 4-0.
And
The NEC annual report.
just like to share the annual report from NEC. As was mentioned before, these collaboratives provide us with incredible programs. We have about 6 students that are participating this year in NEC. For North Reading, we anticipate a similar number for next year. But the programs, I've had a chance to visit some of the programs and see our students that are doing so well and are so well supported. It's a large board, but these are programs that absolutely, we would not be able to offer students these supports in district in this way. And the cost of some of the programs they're in are so much higher than they are through the collaborative. So we're very fortunate to have such wonderful collaboratives and opportunities. So I'm not sure if you have any questions, but this is the annual report. It's one of the pieces each year that I share with you as an update. It's my role as being a board member, which you nominated me for last meeting.
Yes.
No motion needed to accept it?
It's just a presentation
just-
of the annual report. Yep, and I'll have the same one probably for the next meeting.
Okay. Why don't we go back then to the K through 12 graduation council recommendations?
I just wanted to share as an update, just to clarify, what we presented last time was what we are required to do locally. And about a day later, they came out with the state requirements, which do not supersede anything that we have. This is really what's coming down the road, and we still have to do a lot of work in between. The great work that our curriculum leaders and teachers and Mr. Clean and our principals are doing at the high school is all very important and will be aligned with anything that comes next. So these are recommendations at this point. There's 7 aspects to it. Many of these things in North Reading we already have in place. I just wanted to provide a very quick overview and then take any questions that you may have. But the 7 elements that are included, you'll see it's very familiar and very similar to some of the things that we talked about last week. But what we talk about is a program of study with coursework. We were also talking about having end-of-course assessments. So the MassCore Foundation, there are many districts, as Mr. Cleen said last time, there's many districts that may not have MassCore. We exceed MassCore. So that in North Reading would not be much of a change at all to make that adjustment. They are talking about end-of-course assessments that would, this is probably the most important part, this would actually replace the 10th grade MCAS. So they do not envision, at this time, they do not envision having a student who would take 10th grade MCAS and an end-of-course assessment. These end-of-course assessments would replace 10th grade MCAS. So you would have an algebra assessment, possibly an ELA assessment, and then in sophomore year, you might have a few of those as well. They've also made a commitment to that this one test, or even what they've said is not passing any of these tests would not on its own prevent you from graduation. It would be part of a larger algorithm framework. They haven't quite worked out all those recommendations, but trying to keep the spirit of the recent updates to the law that one assessment would not prevent you from graduation. So MCAS was, you had to complete all your local requirements and MCAS. This now would just be a part of it. Then they also spoke to having capstones and portfolios, what this might look like in grade 12. In my mind, this could combine with what we're already doing in many of our courses with some capstones. We have our civics project, for example. There are aspects of that would come out. The idea is that this would be a state-designed capstone project or with guidance, but then that would be locally tailored and designed to meet our needs and locally assessed. So there might be a guideline or a rubric that's given at the state level that then we would assess. This wouldn't be submitted and scored at the state, at least not in its current iteration. So we would need to, a lot more information for what that could look like. I think part of the idea here is that, especially with end-of-course assessments now being in 9th grade and 10th grade, this is a chance to keep students engaged and to make sure that they're graduating with certain skills as opposed to something they may have achieved in 9th grade. The other aspects that they are stating to include, whether it's MyCap or another similar program, but having students really focus on individual career and academic planning. We've shared and presented to you. We sort of saw this in the tea leaves, applied for the grant. We've now had this for 3 years where teachers and staff have worked at middle school and now high school to really develop our foundation for this kind of work. This would not be a huge shift in anything that we're doing, and we really believe in this work and could see, whether it's MyCap or something else, how important it is to have students having these conversations. The next part would be the completion of the FAFSA. I'm going to wear my personal hat here. This is where I'm starting to get a little bit less seeing how this is a graduation requirement. I understand that these are things that the state wants to see all students do, and so they're making it a requirement. This would either be everyone has to complete the FAFSA, know about the FAFSA, and they can then opt out. So you don't have to complete it, but at least there's an accountability piece to hold all students. I'm just, again, I need more information. Question I have is around, this feels more of a family decision than a student achievement. I understand the importance of it and how making sure that all students have access to it, but it's a place where I have some questions. And then the last one is, financial literacy. I think we all agree how important that is. Again, we've applied for some grants, we've come up with curriculum, trying to figure out where it fits. This is a place where it now would be required. This could be a standalone course. It could fit into something like a MyCap program as well. And then the last part, I believe this is the last part, are the seals of distinction. Again, we were one of the first districts to have a seal of biliteracy. We've been doing that now for 6 years, or at least, I'd say. And this recommends a few other seals. One suggestion was around digital literacy, one was around,
Academic.
help me out, Sean, academic honors, and then also CTE in those districts where that would be appropriate. So again, no guidelines for what that would look like, but where students would have to demonstrate their abilities there. And I think the seal of biliteracy has been very important for us, and I think for the students to do, both in their native language possibly, or also if they're studying a new language at high school. So we've done both here. Digital literacy is something we value, that we've embedded in all that we're doing. I'd be interested to see what that looks like. Is there some kind of a way that they demonstrate? Currently, seal of biliteracy is an assessment that students opt into, but this might be another option for students. So these are the components of a larger graduation framework that the state is recommending that might be required. So just wanted to provide that overview, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them, or direct them to Mr. Clean, who knows more than I do.
Scott, you can go.
I have one. So EOC assessment
Yeah,
is equivalent to mastery or competency determination. So we just passed a policy that said to get a diploma, you have to do all these courses and you have to have a mastery in each, you have to pass each assessment. The state is saying that's not the requirement. The state is saying you have to pass most of them. Is that accurate?
there's,
EOC
what the
just-
state is saying, the state is saying that they will not have one assessment be the reason why you don't graduate. So very similar to what we're saying,
So
which
like
is
if-
you have to have a qualifying score. So we're saying you have to have a qualifying score on that assessment, or we will then help you to graduate. It's the same thing. It's not gonna be, you failed the test in 9th grade, now you're not gonna graduate, because this dropout rates would go through the roof across the state if that was,
Okay.
so, we're saying the same thing.
All right, that's just my question, because
Yep.
I'll give a hypothetical, which we'll say it's a hypothetical, is, if you have a student who struggles that passes all the courses, but hasn't passed the math assessment, I'm just saying, like, as long as there's another alternative, they're saying the same sort of, you're saying it's the same thing? Like
I think it's the
Our
same.
policy would still allow another alternative as well?
Yeah, our policy would allow alternatives, and I would imagine, I don't know that I've seen it yet, but I would imagine, similar to the way MCAS had, they would have other routes to show competency there as well.
And I guess my concern here is like, I think districts should be able to, I like that districts can have their own end-of-course assessment. They can determine what is the assessment for their curriculum. But I don't like if there's a different requirement, like, because then literally you could say, oh, he can't pass math here, but he can get a diploma in Wilmington, if he moves to Wilmington. And so like, it seems like it should be the same, like, general requirements, even if what is the assessment in one district might be a little different than the other, so.
That's why you're seeing this,
Yeah.
as far as that, it will take time. If you think of when they started talking about MCAS and how long it took to
Right.
implement pilot, collect data, and correct, I don't know if any of your kids will.
Yeah. Questions I have are, is end of course truly gonna be end of course? I mean, MCAS is from March, April, May, right? That's not
Yeah.
end of course. So if it's truly end of course, do we need our own final at that point? Can we use that? A lot of questions that will be out there that we'll have to figure out over time. But everything that we recently did is in place for this year and for the next several years. I would say we're quite a few years from this coming together, but this is sort of what's next. So,
I just have 2 quick questions. One, since we're on it already, the end of course assessments, using the example of, say, Algebra 1, right? Are students able to retake this multiple times? Like, and does that is it connected with anything like a repetition of the course?
Can be.
It can be.
We build in multiple opportunities, that's why it's grade 9 for algebra, or whatever you take out
Mhm.
one, through there. So if you don't perform, then it's what does the school do in response to the fact that the student didn't perform,
Mhm.
provide that
Okay.
support, and then administer the,
Take it
test
again, and they can take it as many times potentially as they need? Is it like once a year, or is this
Yeah,
yet to be decided?
None of that's been
Okay.
decided, but what the commissioner, I believe, said in the presentation that I was in, you don't want a student who doesn't have the skills from Algebra 1 to move into Algebra 2, right? And let's make sure we're helping them before they move on, and that, getting that information. And personally, I've always seen the value of an end-of-course assessment as opposed to MCAS, which took some 9th grade standards, some 10th grade standards, gave them to you 3/4 of the way through sophomore year, right? This will give us a lot more information, not only about how a student's doing, but how we're doing in our courses. If our courses are aligned to the algebra standards and is the test, we would expect our students to do well. And if not, it helps us look at what we're doing in curriculum instruction. Much more meaningful data than just MCAS, which you have to draw more lines to connect what course this came from, right? And when it was taken, and that constant conversation about, wow, we just didn't get there yet, and we had to, now it's gonna be an end of course. So all of those things make more sense to me for a standardized test being meaningful. So I think that's a step in the right direction.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And then just another quick question on MyCap. Is this something that, that's a major thing, developing a career and academic plan? Is this something that guidance is gonna be tasked with assisting with, or?
Those school counselors Cynthia was talking about?
Yeah, like this seems like a lot to administer. I don't know if there's,
So,
I think the term that you're looking for is unfunded mandate.
yeah.
yeah, those are
Kind of
fun,
there.
those are fun terms. And so, again, we've been building this in. So I would imagine, not knowing exactly what this looks like yet, but I think what we're building now will probably meet the standard they're trying to set. So I think we're way ahead of the game. We've implemented it at middle school. So basically, the framework that they've been putting out there and hoping districts would explore, they're now saying, this is a best practice, everyone needs to adopt it. So we're already doing it. We've been doing it for the last several years. I think we're in year 3 now. In high school, we were doing great things, but when we actually stopped and measured when it was happening 1 or 2 days a year, and not much after 9th grade. And it really became about college prep more than it was about career, because it was like a little bit of that in the early grades, and then as you got into the older grades, it was really about helping them with college decisions fast for those kind of things. Now we're going to have from 6th grade on a comprehensive and constantly readjusting for students for both careers and colleges. So I do think the work they're doing right now is important and will build. And I think being able to say to them, hey, this could be a part of requirement for graduation will help push that through. But there's always the question of when, how, and the funding for it. So.
Gotcha. Thank
Yep.
you.
I don't think this is just a presentation and discussion. It doesn't require a vote, but
Right, this is just informational, really just to clarify.
Right.
So you're not thinking, wait a minute, what was that thing that came out? And did that replace anything we just voted on? So.
and as you said, this is step like not 1, but step like 6 out of 48. So
Yes.
there will be other recommendations once the state has collected and reviewed all the municipal ones. Okay. That brings us to routine matters. We've got the minutes from November 24th.
Move to approve the minutes from the November 24th open session meeting as written.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? 4-0. Budget update, we don't have any at this time. We do have a staffing update, though.
I just noticed I crisscrossed him in the agenda, so I'll fix that, sorry.
That's all right.
But new hires, replacing other positions. Carolyn Rooney, paraprofessional general at the Batchelder. Molly Corthell is teacher of social studies at middle school. Will be beginning that full-time. And Noah Walsh as a long-term substitute for ELA at the high school. And replacing Mr. Brian McCarthy, who is leaving us as a retirement mid-year.
I have one question on staffing.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding is we are down an occupational therapist at the high school.
Mm-hmm.
Is that still the case? I mean, and have we, I'm just curious about what it is and like if there's any students not getting the services they need right now.
Have to wait till Cynthia left for this one?
I know.
No,
Forgot
but
about it.
we're not missing any services.
Okay.
We have been, we've come up with a plan to make that work, while that person is out.
Oh, is it just a leave that we're filling as opposed to trying to replace a new? Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. Anything else? That's it. Bids and donations. Who wants to take over Tim's role?
I don't have it in front of me, so not me.
Let's see. He
There a
does it
bunch?
so well. I can do it.
Okay.
I'm gonna mess it up, but I can do it.
That's okay.
Let's
You'd like
see.
me calling us out for missing a thing 2 years ago?
Is
Wow.
it, oh, I'm opening it, sorry. Okay, so I just do the recommended motions, right?
Yep.
Okay. Let's see, I move to approve that the school committee vote to accept with gratitude a donation of $215 from the North Reading Hornet Hall of Fame to be put towards the repair of a golf cart.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Approved 4-0.
I move to approve that the school committee vote to accept with gratitude a donation of $1,320 from Nicole Hodge to be put towards the girls' varsity basketball clinic.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved 4-0.
Move to approve that the school committee vote to accept with gratitude a donation of $1,780 from the NR Hornet Hall of Fame to be put towards the purchase of a sound system.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved 4-0.
Move to approve that the school committee vote to accept with gratitude a donation of $1,500 from the NR Hornet Hall of Fame to be put towards boys hockey team locker rooms.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion?
My only question is,
Where are those?
yeah, where is that exactly? Were you improving another rink, another
So
location?
my understanding is that this is a separate facility for them within the building.
At,
We-
what's our home rink? I don't even know.
Within our building here?
No.
No,
At the hockey. It's sort of, it's providing them, because it's not a home rink, it's providing them with a space
We need a rink.
that's their own. They're not just using the guest visitor locker room even when they're home.
Mhm.
So it's just an additional cost for custodial and everything, just to have that space within the building that we're using, so.
I guess my question is whether we accept it if it's going to another building, but whatever, it's fine. I guess it's being donated to the
It's,
North Reading
we're accepting
schools?
the donation, it's coming out of our athletic. We
Okay.
had similar situation last year,
Okay.
where we had to pay an additional fee for that, so that they had their own space.
Okay.
Wow.
Second.
Yeah, I don't forget where we were, but yes.
We already had discussion.
I know.
So, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Approved 4-0.
Move to approve that the school committee vote to accept with gratitude a donation of $4,479, that's very nice, from Catherine Schultz to be used for the purchase of new uniforms for the volleyball team.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Approved 4-0.
Move to approve that the school committee vote to accept with gratitude a donation of $210 from the Ethel Little PTO to be used towards transportation for the first grade enrichment trip to the Flint Memorial Library and the police and fire stations.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved 4-0.
And finally, move to approve that the school committee vote to accept with gratitude an in-kind donation of an HP LaserJet copy machine in the amount of $2,000 from Amina Langford to be used by the IT Facilities Department on the lower level.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Approved 4-0. Well done. That was a long
I
one.
think Tim lost his job, honestly.
I know. Out.
I'm gonna have color commentary though on everything I read, so you might not want me to do that.
Okay.
No, it's all good. Adds life to it. Okay, grants, FC 0337, Safe and Supportive Schools Continuation Grant. For $10,000.
So we had just shared this out before. This is a grant that Ms. Conant and Mr. Rosa and Dr. O'Connell have worked on with me as well. It's as it says here, the grant provides a program to ensure schools are a safe, positive, healthy, culturally responsive, equitable, inclusive, whole school learning environment. And so we have received a continuation grant to continue the work that we did last year for the amount of $10,000.
Looks like we have a recommended motion. If someone wants to get that.
Let's see, the school committee, I move to approve the school committee votes to accept the Safe and Supportive Schools Continuation Grant, competitive grant from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education for the amount of $10,000.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved 4-0. Doesn't look like we have any overnight trip requests, so
None at this time.
any social media we want to talk about?
I should have brought this up when Cynthia was here, but I think everyone was sick of hearing my voice at that point. But I was gonna comment on something, pulling something from her presentation. And if nothing, and I think this is something that we could literally repost every few months and it would still get interest, is we talk about all these different roles and what they're necessary for student support. Like, you know, we have the school adjustment counselor and we have the and the school psychologist, and what we had, what we have now, and what's ideal. I think it would be so interesting just to have like a slide that says, like, this is what the school adjustment counselor does, this is what we would ideally want, and this is what we have now.
Yeah, because when you're not in the school system, you don't necessarily.
No, and the names
know.
are not, they don't fall fluently, you know, kind of off your tongue. You're like, wait, which one's which? Like, every time we have Cynthia here, we're always asking her to redefine the positions.
Well, I understand why instead of calling them guidance counselors, Mr. Rosa wrote a nice piece for the paper a couple weeks ago explaining why that term has fallen out of fashion. But now school counselor and school adjustment counselor are so similar.
Right.
And then we have the added fun at the middle school, what you think of as a traditional middle school guidance counselor, those people are all also psychologists. So they have, at the middle school is almost different than the way it works at elementary and at high school. So it is confusing. So yeah, we can definitely work on that kind of a graphic.
I think that would be really
And to just show, you know, what the losses are and that. So, yeah, her presentation, we added those few slides at the end as we're getting into budget conversations moving forward, just to think about what restorations we would need and what the impact has been of these cuts that we've had to make.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, and I know this probably is not ever possible, but, you know, when we get, again, talking with budget and just people understanding where money is spent, when there's discussion of an adjustment counselor and how that would be ideal to have a full-time adjustment counselor at every level, if there was ever, and I know we can't because of, you know, of confidentiality, but like, if there was ever any narrative examples that could be used, like occasionally we've gone into them in school committee meetings and they're so special.
Yeah, we can definitely get some sound bites from
Yeah.
the value of the positions. could share some emails I have,
Yeah.
positive and negative,
Yeah.
about them not being here, or, no, I'm serious about
Yeah,
it.
no, I just
You
think
know,
that's
hey, it's a
super
Thursday,
important.
my kid didn't access the counselor.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think getting some people to come and speak to it, which we've had,
Yeah.
but I think that's always important. One voice goes very far. You're right, absolutely right about that. that's how I've, you know,
I think
when,
it was, I'm sorry to interrupt, but wasn't it Masco that was like going through budget cuts and they had like these very personal, like things that were shared, and then there's other things that people reshare
Yep.
on social
Yeah.
media.
North Andover did too.
Okay.
Yeah.
we can definitely do that, at that stage if needed.
Excellent. Now, anything else? Social media?
Nope.
All right, subcommittee updates. I actually was not at the last finance planning team. Tim is out. Anything you
I
want to?
put myself there, yeah. So we continued our discussion, just looking at the overall financial picture of the towns and the schools, and just thinking about what the needs are, both for the schools and the town. There's certainly a lot of need on both sides. We talked at the school side a lot about the conversation that we just were having about, you know, what it looks like for restoration, what are some of those positions that we need to move forward. And, you know, one of the challenges, I think, when you've cut as many positions as we have over the last 2 years, trying to figure out, you can't necessarily just restore them all in 1 year either. So trying to come up with what that new plan is moving forward. I mean, we've, as you know, with the middle school, for example, we drastically changed the entire schedule in order to make the cuts that we made. And so we don't want to be in a position where we're changing back and forth every year. So part of what we're working on and trying to come up with is what are those key restorations, and then what are some of those positions that we need to move us forward in the new budget cycle. So
Awesome. So light topics.
yeah.
Nothing important. All right, the subcommittee schedule. Was there any other? I don't know if any other teams met in that time. I don't think so.
Fire station, things like that, but just moving forward.
Fair enough. So the subcommittee schedule, the Fine Arts Subcommittee is scheduled to meet on December 9th, tomorrow, 3:15 PM. Finance Planning Team is meeting January 9th at 8 AM. Athletic Subcommittee is scheduled to meet January 13th, 12:30 PM. And so administrative reports daily.
Great, so I just want to again thank, this is one of the reports that was collectively pulled together from all of our schools. Batchelder shared some great updates about their Thanksgiving baskets for the food pantry, and some school broadcasting announcements, getting into the classrooms, having a broadcast in the classrooms for the morning announcements, and their doghouse meetings, which is a part of their new Bulldog Values program for this year, which I'm sure you're gonna hear a lot about when we get to our school presentations. The Hood School shared about what they're doing this winter season with their enrollment at 419 students, so always important to keep our eyes there at the Hood School with what's happening. Fully implementing curriculum. They had a very successful STEAM night. I think it was one of the most well-attended I've been to. Always a great program at the Hood School this year, and a really excellent Veterans Day ceremony, and some important dates upcoming at the Hood. The Little School, they're looking at their labs program, Learning, Achieving, Believing, and Succeeding, which was unveiled to students at their morning meeting on the 21st. They collected more than 400 boxes of cereal, and they leaned into the whole 6-7, so they celebrated the 67th day of school. And they kind of,
We still don't know what that.
and they kind of made it, they figured it would be discussed anyway, so they went along with it. The middle school and the high school, the middle school and the little school were invited to a Celebrating Success conference on December 4th for their, for reaching pre-pandemic levels in both ELA and math. And so those two schools were recognized, and both principals shared with me, they brought a team of teachers that they felt was very valuable experience to hear from other schools and to share some best practices. So lots of note-taking and contacts and networking to bring new ideas back to our district. So we're really excited about that. Middle school had their Veterans Day program, which they shared a little bit more with here. And great work that's working with their circles with seniors. So the students, group of 12th, 8th grade, grade 8 students, went along with the principal and the adjustment counselor to O'Leary Senior Center, and there's a photo included there as well. High school, lots going on there. As we know, football made it to the Final Four, goes cross country at the Meet of Champions, cheerleading 4th place in the state. Performing arts groups did well across auditions for all states. One scored 3rd for the top trombonist and 1 for the first tenor. The Unified Basketball Program went very well on November 18th. And we had a great celebration. Senator Tarr came out to recognize student success. So we recognized Notorious, the indoor-outdoor girls track team, and our championship baseball team. So we had a lot of students there and a few that came back, and we were able to celebrate. It was a really great experience there in the afternoon on the 21st. They had parent-teacher conferences, and they are, as you know, we also had our Water for Elephants plays we talked about earlier, and the Polar Plunge. So lots of great things happening at all 5 schools.
It's awesome.
I just wanted to add as well that we are on Friday, as I mentioned last meeting, we have an MSBA meeting on Friday at 10 a.m. If any of you are interested in attending, school committee members, let me know. But we will be watching that very closely and hope to be invited into the program, at which time we'll have a lot more information to find out. If we are invited in, there's then an orientation meeting soon thereafter to learn more about it. So.
Awesome. Excellent. So correspondence, not this time. Future business. So on January 12th, we've got a regular meeting, 6:30, where we're going to talk about the NRPS 2030 updates. January 26th, we also have another meeting, regular meeting, where we'll be talking about the high school presentation, as well as the North Reading High School Program of Studies. And February 9th, we'll be going through superintendent goals, school committee goals, and the like. And unless I've missed something, we're going to be going into executive session, so we're going to adjourn here, and then,
You need a motion to go to executive here?
Yeah.
Want me to make it?
yes, please.
It's
Okay.
written there if you want to.
Yeah, I move to go into executive session to discuss the reputation, character, physical condition, or mental health rather than professional competence of an individual, and also to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, and also discuss litigation as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and to not return to open session.
Exactly. All right.
Second?
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Roll call vote.
Oh, we need a roll call. Yeah.
Aye.
Scott? Cool.
Aye.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well, 4-0. We passed 4-0. Thank you. Yay. Adjourned.